Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our broadcast this evening. Before we go to David Rivas, let me welcome our newest broadcast partner to our GatorBytes Live family, and that's AvoyalsParishOnline.com. Our show can now be heard worldwide on AvoyalsParishOnline.com. We want to thank Hippie Willie for all of his work in making this possible. And now let's go live to David Rivas.
Good evening and welcome to GatorBytes. I'm David Rivas and I'll be your host for this evening. We are broadcasting live from the Gator Cafe and the Hotel Atrium at the Paragon Casino Resort. We're happy to have you with us this evening and look forward to visiting with our guests. And would like to thank both our community partners and our corporate partners for their support of our community. Our guest this evening is Kristen Dozat, certified public accountant and manager at Holder, Champaign, Slavin & Company. Hello, Kristen. How are you today?
Hi, David. I'm doing just fine. Glad to be here.
What do you think about this weather, huh?
It's nice. Makes you want to be outdoors.
Oh, definitely. This weekend, all the kids did was run around and play, and I couldn't make Kool-Aid fast enough.
That was nice.
Christian, on Tuesday, January 1st, 2013, Congress passed the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2012, or as commonly referred to, the Physical Cliff Act. What are the major impacts of this act?
Well, David, this act resulted in permanent extensions of most of the Bush-era tax cuts that were set to expire. It also extended many other tax provisions that were set to lapse in 2011.
You know, a lot of folks had a lot of stress about what was about to happen. But in reality, you know, it didn't seem like there was much of a change.
No, many people were not really impacted by the changes after all was said and done.
Christian, the major impact most people are seeing today is smaller paychecks because more Social Security is being withheld from their paychecks. Can you explain that to our listeners out there?
Sure. At the end of 2012, the payroll tax holiday ended. Starting in 2011 and all the way through 2012, employees paid a temporary lower rate of Social Security at 4.2% instead of the normal rate of 6.2%. As of January 1st, 2013, the payroll tax rates reverted back to the 6.2%, which resulted in 2% more being withheld out of people's paychecks for Social Security tax.
Christian, let me ask you this, because you might know a little bit more history about how that transpired, why now all of a sudden people are paying more out of their payroll tax. Isn't this something that occurred during the Bush era?
Yes, it did. And basically, they said, here's a payroll tax holiday. Let's boost the economy, and let's give everybody 2% of their paycheck back. Less for their Social Security. And so what happened is they did that, and then it just was set to expire. So it really just went back to the way that it was originally before at the 6.2%.
So I guess you could say they kind of put it on the shelf and
took it back.
Lo and behold, it fell off the shelf, and here we are today.
You're right. That's it.
All right, Christian. Major changes that will affect in 2013 as a result of this act.
Well, most of the changes in the upcoming year will affect only those individuals making over $400,000 per year and families making more than $450,000 a year. Those individuals will see an income tax rate increase from 35% to 39.6% of federal tax. In addition, on their capital gains, the tax will rise from 15% tax to 20% tax, starting 2013.
Let me ask you this. So if you're under the 400,000 mark, do you still get the increase in capital gains when you sell like something like a home or some major business where there's some dollars to transpire if you're under that mark?
No, actually, for the people who don't make above $400,000 in a year, they will see very few changes. For the most part, their tax rates remain the same that they've been since 2003, and most of those taxpayers will still be able to deduct most of the same things they've deducted in the past.
How about that, John? You know, I mean, when they say middle class, I'm thinking, what is that magic number? We'll ponder that. It's time now to hear from our corporate partners. You listen to GatorBytes Live from the Paragon Casino Resort.
Talk to the people who know investments. Titan Value Equities Group, specializing in 401ks, rollovers, and drop accounts. Andre Cupero and Alexis Gasport are registered representatives who can provide you with professional investment advice. Located 135 Cocoville Road, Marksville. Call 253-8805. Securities offered through Crown Capital Securities LP. Offered through Andre Cupero Investment Advisory. Member FINRA and SIPC.
Like your Cajun country blues with a rock and roll twist? Be there when Louisiana's own Wayne Toots brings his toe-tapping tunes to Paragon Casino Resort Saturday, February 2nd. Get your tickets now for only $15 at ParagonTicketmaster.com or by calling 1-800-745-3000. Catch Wayne Toops and his show-stopping accordion live Saturday, February 2nd at Paragon Casino Resort in nearby Marksville. Come see the way Louisiana plays. Like your Cajun country blues with a rock and roll twist? Be there when Louisiana's own Wayne Toots brings his toe-tapping tunes to Paragon Casino Resort Saturday, February 2nd. Get your tickets now for only $15 at ParagonTicketmaster.com or by calling 1-800-745-3000. Catch Wayne Toops and his show-stopping accordion live Saturday, February 2nd at Paragon Casino Resort in nearby Marksville. Come see the way Louisiana plays.
That are in effect of 2012 tax returns that we are all about to file.
Well, David, several of the same tax deductions, as I said earlier, remain the same as they have been in the past. Certain things, such as teachers, will have up to $250 deduction for qualified expenses, such as supplies and things they needed for their classroom. Individuals will still have the option of deducting state and local sales tax as itemized deductions in lieu of state and local income taxes. There are still credits available for certain tuition expenses related to higher education. There's also a residential energy credit still available, so a portion of those home improvements that you make may actually qualify for a small tax credit. There's a child tax credit of $1,000 per child. That hasn't changed, as well as the earned income credit, and there's a daycare credit as well. Itemized deductions, for the most part, remain the same as they have been. Most people's itemized deductions consist of things like the home mortgage interest deduction, deductions for charitable contributions they make, real estate tax deductions, and many other miscellaneous itemized deductions. For business owners, Section 179 expense will still be allowed. This allowed business owners to deduct certain fixed assets in 1 year as opposed to having to depreciate those assets for a fixed number of years. The maximum amount for 2012 that a business owner can deduct is $500,000 on qualified purchases.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to focus on this because it's probably something that we all look at, as far as individuals and especially teachers out there who have a challenge because they're not the highest paid people, and I know that they always sometimes have to come out of pocket. You mentioned about $250 tax deduction. So the requirement is just proving or utilizing what they have to use during the school year, or is that the minimum or the maximum?
That's the maximum, but for the most part, most of the teachers you'll speak to, they've spent $250, whether it's decorating their classroom or getting this various art supplies and things for the children that the school doesn't provide. They usually do spend up to that, and that's an adjustment to income, and it's been around for a while. That was one of the things that was set to phase out at the end of 2012, but they decided to go ahead and reinstate it permanently.
And let me ask you this. There's a lot of homeowners out there, and you talked about special deductions that were out there for improvements and things. Are they talking about green programs? Are they talking about, look, I put a security system in, I use high energy efficiency in my house with my HVAC system, or maybe I just insulate it, or maybe I put a garage door in? I mean, what exactly is that focusing on?
There are some specific standards. A lot of their focus is on solar and wind energy and things like geothermal heat pumps. There's also a few things available, such as major improvements for like a more energy-efficient air conditioning unit or windows or front door, things like that. They have to meet certain qualifications, and they know that the guidelines are very strict. But they are available. It's worth asking your tax preparer about looking into them and keeping your receipts.
Okay, so if I plant a tree in my front yard beside my big bay window to create shade to reduce the heat in my home, that's not maybe a tax deduction, then?
No, David, that one's not in the book. Haven't come across it yet.
Okay. Anyway, let's go to the next question. Christian, there's been some talk about the laws on estate taxes changing. What is the estate tax exclusion now?
Right now, the estate and gift tax exclusion amount was actually retained at the $5 million per person, which is what it was before. This is indexed for inflation. Anything in excess of that $5 million will be applied at a higher tax rate of 40%, up from the 35% tax rate in 2012.
You know, let me step back a minute, because now I recall you talked about up to $500,000 for businesses. Can you kind of focus in on us on that and tell us, is it for equipment? Is it for improvements? Is it because they use green programs? What exactly is that?
For the most part, it's movable equipment, things other than land, building, and structures. Movable equipment, that the owner purchases, you can run off the whole cost, up to $500,000 of that equipment cost in 1 year.
Wow, that's pretty substantial for those business owners out there.
Really,
has that always been in place, or is that something new?
No, that was part of the Bush-era tax cuts that came about in 2003. That was one of the things that was set to expire, but it actually didn't. They reinstated it, and we still have it now.
Now, I know that there's some typical type deductions that people have done in the past, and I know you talked about it a little bit when you talked about education and non-profits. As far as like donations and things of that nature. Can you give us a little bit more insight on that?
Okay, for donations, mostly charitable contributions that you make to a church or a qualified charity, not deductions to individuals or unqualified. Things like dinner tickets and lottery tickets aren't deductible. But most of those charitable contributions are, as long as you have substantiation. You have to keep your receipts and your documentation on that. As far as a few of the education credits out there, the state's got a great education credit right now that helps, and most people have been utilizing this for the past few years on their state of Louisiana return. You can actually deduct some school supplies and school uniform expenses for your children on your state tax return. So that helps a little.
Wow, that's definitely some good information that you've given us this evening. If somebody wants to call or get in touch with you, Christian, and ask you some specific questions dealing with their taxes, or they would like for you to possibly have an interview with them to see if they would like to utilize your firm's services, who do they contact? How do they contact? How can they reach you?
Well, we actually have 10 offices in the state of Louisiana. Here in this area, I'm one of the managers in our Marksville office. Our phone number is listed in the book. We're Coulter, Champagne, Slavin and Company. They can contact us at 318-253-9252. Either myself or another tax preparer would be able to set up an interview with them and sit down and talk about some of the things they need to know for their income tax return.
Well, Christian, it's been great having you on the show. You gave us a wealth of information. I know there's a lot of people out there probably scratching their heads and have more questions. But thank you for being here, and we loved having you here on GatorBytes.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate it.
All right, it's time now to hear from our corporate partners. You listen to GatorBytes Live from the Paragon Casino Resort.
Like your Cajun country blues with a rock and roll twist? Be there when Louisiana's own Wayne Toots brings his toe-tapping tunes to Paragon Casino Resort Saturday, February 2nd. 365. Get your tickets now for only $15 at ParagonTicketmaster.com or by calling 1-800-745-3000. Catch Wayne Toops and his show-stopping accordion live Saturday, February 2nd at Paragon Casino Resort in nearby Marksville. Come see the way Louisiana plays.
Talk to the people who know investments. Titan Value Equities Group, specializing in 401ks, rollovers, and drop accounts. Andre Coupero and Alexis Gasport are registered representatives who can provide you with professional investment advice. Located 135 Cocoville Road, Marksville. Call 253-8805. Securities offered through Crown Capital Securities LP. Offered through Andre Coupero Investment Advisory. Member FINRA and SIPC.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're broadcasting live from GatorBytes Cafe. Your host, David Rivas, and we're going to be discussing gun control. But before we do that, David, I have to ask,
Sure.
what a great job Kristen did.
Incredible. You know what? I'm telling you, she's probably sparked a lot of interest in some of the things she discussed. And I really, in fact, after the show, I'm going to ask her some key specific questions I have, because I think there's some opportunity there for people to help themselves with their taxes in 2012, from the 2012 taxes.
No question about that. But I have to say, I did get a response on the question about planting the shade tree next to your bay window. And there's a special exclusion in the Falls Parish. If it's a cypress tree, you can deduct it.
You know what? I'm thinking it might be a cypress tree. I was thinking of palm at first, but a cypress tree would definitely do.
Listen, we want to let everybody know who's listening. We're going through some changes. We're doing some things differently. We now are broadcasting live on the internet worldwide, as I mentioned at the opening of the show on APO, which is evolvesparishonline.com. Now, we will have in the future, hopefully soon, during the show, we're going to have a chat box available at that website. You'll actually be able to interact with us as the show is going on. And also, you can go there and post any questions that you may have that you'd like asked on the show, and we'll certainly do that.
So, John, like even today's show, for the listeners out there wanted to ask a question for the next show that we could answer, they can do it at this time.
They can do it. They sure can. And that's what we want to be a part of. We want, obviously, we care about the community and what happens in our community. We want a better community. We believe it's all part of our responsibility to do what we can to have a better community, and that's one way to do it. Let's give a voice to the people. You know, we're going to be talking about gun control. We discussed it, talking about taxes. A lot of very important issues taking place in our country that affect us all.
Oh, definitely. You know, it's a hot topic. I mean, it's unfortunate how it had to come to the forefront, and some of the things that have been happening. You know, there's the shooting, the theater shooting, and of course what happened in Newton. And then currently there's a few other schools that have had some issues as well. And you know, there have been universities where there have been some incidents, so it's definitely in the forefront, and that's something that we need to discuss.
So where do we start?
Let's start with a little bit of the Second Amendment itself. It was ratified December 17, 1791, along with the other 9 amendments that make up the Bill of Rights. Why is it a very short amendment? Its exact meaning in terms of what types of weapons are protected is still in contention today.
Mm-hmm.
Folks are saying, well, what exactly does it mean? Well, you have to know what the Second Amendment says. What does it say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Now, you and I had some discussion about this before we went on the air. And part of that amendment, the part that strikes me, I think, the most, is not the issue about whether or not I, as an individual, should have the right to bear arms, but a well-regulated militia. So back during the time that this was written, the idea of a militia within the United States, nobody had an issue with.
Well, not at all. I mean, here you have the original 13 colonies. You know, you're having the war, you know, the colonies putting themselves together to create the United States. They had to prepare themselves against the British in order to be able to defend not only themselves, their family, and their property, but now these are times of war. And during those times, one has to have a militia in place, an army, or some sort of protection that they're going to be able to defend themselves with. So it was a great law to have, because you had to be able to form at that time and organize. And without that amendment, I don't know, people would have the understanding of what was necessary.
You know, this is a very, very passionate issue, as we well know.
Definitely.
No question about that. When you know, on both sides, those who want to protect their right to bear arms, and those who say, you know what, we need to restrict some of the arms that we're bearing. because of what happened, as you mentioned, in Newtown, Connecticut, and some other places throughout the country. So passionate, no question about that. What we need is sensible debate. One of the issues that I've heard about the debate on passing gun control legislation is a hunter doesn't need a Bushmaster AR-15 to deer hunt. And I watched a clip on YouTube here just not last week, as a matter of fact. And the lady making the point, she said, I own this weapon for protection, not to hunt deer. So it goes back to the issue of personal protection, protecting life and property.
You know, John, I can look at that debate and I can say to myself versus, you know, as we as Americans, and we know that we have our rights that were guaranteed to us through the amendments, we take a lot of pride in who we are and what that means to us, not only as patriots and as Americans and as citizens, but we not only have earned and deserved those rights and have fought for those rights, but we also paid for those rights. You know, we have a government that says that we have to pay certain monies in order to get background checks. We have to pay certain taxes and levies that come with those to have the right to own those arms. If we want to have concealed weapons licenses, we have to pay for those. It doesn't come free. So, as a matter of fact, you know, you want to look at this all the way around. Do we want to say that take people's guns away and what they're shooting and how they're shooting and how much ammo they should have? Or do we want to protect the interests of those that say we have the right and protect the interests of those that are the most vulnerable to having something happen to them? And no one's ever going to be able to sit there and control and say, you know what? These children, what's happened in other situations, guarantee that they can protect them. But what they can do is put something in place to maybe deter those things from happening. When I sit here and I think to myself, what could have been done different? You know, there's not a lot that could have been done different.
You're right.
You know? I mean, anyone can grab a firearm and commit a crime. Anyone can. They can go through a legal method of doing it, or they can illegally obtain that weapon. And the reality is that if you minimize the possibility and the rights of those who do it legally and tell them they can't, and it's going to make it even easier for those who want to commit a crime to be able to not only cause harm and create a situation where we can't defend ourselves. So it's tough all the way around, John.
And, you know, that's one of the focal points of this debate is if you take our weapons away or restrict our weapons, okay, what you're going to do, the law-abiding people are going to continue to follow the law and do what they're supposed to do. So they're going to be able or be in a position where they're less able to protect themselves. And the criminal element, who's going to do it no matter what, maybe not on the scale that was done, but he's going to do it some way, somehow. He's going to be a more of an advantage.
John, you know, like I know, in reality, out there's no way to stop someone who's going to commit a crime. Now, can we as citizens, U.S. citizens of this great nation, give ourselves an opportunity to defend ourselves against that individual? We can, but it can't be taken away from us. Who should not have the right to bear arms? I think it's pretty clear. We don't give felons arms. We don't even give them the right to bear arms. Now, when you talk about somebody that's insane or somebody that has mental problems, now you're talking about a whole different issue. You know, we had thought about this and contemplated this earlier. I believe personally that there should be some sort of law that says if you're going to have arms, taxable, non-taxable, if you're going to have a self-defense weapon, then you need to be able to say that you can 100% secure that weapon in your home, where you domicile. So whether or not you have the key, or whether or not they're open, or whether or not a child has access, or even somebody who breaks in can get into them, you need to be able to say that you secure that weapon. That's one of my only things, is I'd like to see something that says that there's an individual in that home that has a key, and that those guns are protected in that home.
So instead of taking my weapon away, what you're saying is let's look at making me, as a weapon owner, be more responsible for my weapon.
I can see that, John. I mean, I really can. And, you know, there's no way you're going to be able to control that 100% all the way around once again. But then, you know, you think about, you know, the situations that have occurred in the last 3 to 4 years out there, and where these mass, you know, shootings have happened. if there was something in place in the school systems, or if there was something in place that said they couldn't get to that weapon as quickly or with the possibility where they could just open a closet door, go under somebody's bed or somebody's pillow and grab that weapon, maybe these things wouldn't have happened. Maybe there would have been some form of deterrence. But, that's maybe possible, whatever. The reality is that there's some other things that have been discussed. NRA is saying, let's allow some firearms into the school, but let's let them be controlled. Let's let certain teachers or certain, directors have the ability to have their opportunity to defend those children if need be.
Well, let me make it clear. I'm totally against arming our teachers. That's wrong, as far as I'm concerned. They've already got enough to do. We don't need to make a militia out of them. But I do believe in having some type of security within the school system. And like Kristen and I were talking earlier, I'm sorry, and I feel bad that it's come to that point. But what if would have had at least one armed security or officer, whatever it is, in Newtown, Connecticut, instead of the teacher or the principal who is unarmed rushing somebody with an AR-15? You have somebody with at least some kind of firepower to control that situation, do what was necessary to control that situation. We may have had a different outcome. So certainly I'm for that. I don't believe we need to arm our teachers. Okay, that's we don't want to arm radio disc jockeys, for God's sakes. What would happen then?
Yeah, I'm going to differ from you a little bit on that, John. Every plane that goes up in the air, they have a whole process that takes place, and, whether it's a marshal that's on there or whether it's a gun that's in the cockpit, there is a gun on those planes. And when they go up in the air, they're not protecting hundreds of thousands of people. They're protecting just the individuals that are on that plane,
right,
and what someone could do if they got control of that plane.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, defending a child or defending a group of people, if we had one individual that was certified, that was psychologically background tested, we knew his mental capacity, and that individual knew what to do with the firearm, there might have not been 20 of them, or 20 whatever it was of those poor children that had to suffer and endure what happened that day, and their families will never live that down. They'll still have to live it. I would have been okay with somebody having those credentials, having that firearm in that school.
So what you're saying is it makes no difference to you whether it's a security officer or a teacher?
As long as they have the qualified credentials to know when to use it, how to use it, and where to use it.
I figured you'd say that. All right, we've got about a minute left. Closing remarks?
My closing remarks are this, the Constitution is there. We've fought hard. Many generations have gone to war, whether, they were in the Korean War, Vietnam War, whether it was the Confederate War. But whatever we have as Americans as our rights that were given to us, and what we pledge every day, to the allegiance of our flag, into our community, and what we say that we're going to do to defend our citizens, we should honor what's in that Constitution.
Now, you see, you said something that leads me to something. That's part of the problem. Within the problem is the problem. No more Pledge of Allegiance in a lot of schools. And I agree with you 100%. When we pledge to our flag, to our country, we got people now fighting in Afghanistan, Iran. We're going into Algeria, I believe, and helping out in that situation there. We have people fighting now, losing their lives for our rights to our freedoms. So, yeah, we do pledge allegiance to our flag and to our country.
Oh, yeah. Definitely I defend the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms and all the other amendments that go with it. But look, it's been some good feedback here, John. And I know that everything that you're saying is coming from the heart. I want to tell all the listeners out there, definitely get on the Vols online, give us a few comments, tell us what you think. And we want to thank everybody for joining us here on GatorBytes Live at the Paragon Casino Atrium. Remember, it's always important that we as a community must always hold our